Welcome, veterans. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. I am Coach Jim Jackson here along with Coach Tim. It's great to have you in here. We're going to go ahead and start things out for the first 5 minutes. If you want to post in the chat, hey, where you're tuning in from, what branch you served. Would love to hear from you. I'll lead things out. Hey, I'm Coach Jim Jackson here, VA Claims Insiders. I'm tuning in from Edwardsville, Illinois. So I'm here in the Midwest, and we have snow, and I'm definitely a Philadelphia Eagles fan, as you can see. Served in the Marine Corps from 1994 to 98. So welcome. It's definitely great to have you, and looking forward to hearing where everyone else is tuning in from. Go ahead, Coach Tim.
No, absolutely. Thank you for everybody tuning in today. Going to have a great topic today on mental health ratings. So, I'm an Army veteran, retired Army veteran. I'm actually located right here in the great state of Texas, and unfortunately, right now we're having some extreme cold weather. I have a little Arctic blast coming down, so I've been getting things prepped up over the last week for the animals out here and getting everybody safe for this maybe record-setting lows that we might have out here in East Texas. So, yeah, I'm a retired Army veteran. I served for 30 years, I was deployed all over the place during those 30 years, and multiple combat zones. So this subject here today, this topic, mental health, is near and dear to my heart, as I, was diagnosed with a mental health condition myself many years ago when I recognized that I had symptoms for mental health, and diagnosed with combat PTSD, and then really didn't know how to get through the process, right, or get to how to file my claim, and started watching the videos for VA Claims Insider on YouTube, watching Brian Reese. And I knew right then that I needed to become a member of VA Claims Insider. Became an elite member. Was assigned a amazing coach, and just immediately got a great strategy. I know you're going to cover this a little bit, Coach Jim, but I got that great strategy. And the important with me was the education, right? So really understanding how the VA rates mental health, because I had no clue. Didn't really know what my symptoms were necessarily. So as I went through that process and communicated with my coach often, eventually figured out my medical evidence, but got all that figured out, and filed that combat PTSD claim and won, right, and have a rating now for at least 70% rating for combat PTSD. So I was just cannot stress how important it was for me to be able to become an elite member and be an elite member for life, right? So, and that brought me over to coach, right, to be a coach over VA Claims Insider, because I saw the importance of having that coach and having that bond and that education. So, yeah, I appreciate letting me explain a little bit about that, because this is important to me. So,
yeah, and it's great. Thank you for your service, Coach Tim, and thank you for sharing as well. Happy Wednesday, veterans, right? For everybody coming in, and thank you for spending some time with us today, right? We got veterans sounding off in the chat from all over. I'm going to give some shouts out. Feel free to post in there. Once again, it's great to have you at 5 after. We're going to kick things off. We have a great educational class for you today on information on mental health. Trevor, welcome. Oregon Army, thank you for your service, sir. It's great to have you today.
Walter Lacey out of Texarkana. I'm not far from you, Walter. Actually, I'm not far from Texarkana. I know you're getting that cold like I am too. So welcome to the discussion today. Thank you for your service. So,
yeah, we got California here in the Navy. Well, welcome. Juan, Texas, United States Marine Corps, Semper Fi. It's great to have you. Lynn,
Gulf War, Desert Storm veteran, Tampa Bay, Florida. No kin. I know you're probably a little bit warmer than we are over there in Florida, so it must be nice.
Well, it's great. We have tons of people tuning in today, and this is going to be great. So it is 5 after. So myself and Coach Tim are going to get things started off. Once again, for those of you who just came in, I'm Coach Jim Jackson. I'm a veteran coach here at VA Claims Insider. I went through this process on my own in 2013, and let me tell you, it was a train wreck. There was a lot of information I didn't know when I had an opportunity to become part of this great organization as a veteran coach to help other veterans on that journey and educate them on the process. That's what brought me here to VA Claims Insider. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get our disclaimer out of the way. Okay. We are not accredited agents, VSOs, attorneys, or any other entity recognized by the Department of Veterans Affairs, VA, and we're not affiliated with the VA in any way. VA Claims Insider is an education-based coaching company for disabled veterans, exploring eligibility for increased VA disability benefits and who wish to learn about that process. VA Claims Insider also connects veterans with vetted independent medical professionals in our preferred provider network for medical examinations and independent medical opinions, also known as IMOs, for a wide range of disability conditions. So here at VA Claims Insider, right? When you sign up in the elite program, you're going to get a strategy, right? You're going to get a solid strategy to help prepare you and then educate you on the process. Also, in some cases, for veterans who have been out, you might need to get connected for medical evidence, right? You also get the one-on-one coaching model here. And we have live classes via Zoom, right? 3 times a day. There's also coffee with the coaches where you can come in and hang out with VA Claims Insiders, awesome coaches. And also you're going to get a, mental health exam education classes and medical exam education classes as well. For everyone who is tuning in and you want to learn more, schedule a discovery call, right? And talk to one of our team members by going to vaclaims.help and reach out to our organization also at vaclaimsinsider.com. We'd love to partner with you on your VA claim journey. Okay. So today, here in 2025, we're going to cover the VA mental health ratings, right? The VA recognizes 31 mental disorders for rating purposes out of nearly 300 listed in the DSM-5 today. We'll focus on the most common conditions that impact military veterans, right? The 3 most common service-connected mental health conditions among veterans are post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD, 56.6%, right? Major depressive disorder at 12.6%, and chronic adjustment order that affects about 7.1% of veterans. The VA uses the general rating formula for mental disorders from the 38 CFR 4.130 to rate mental health conditions from 0 to 100%, with breaks at 10%, 30%, 50%, and 70%. Your final VA rating for mental health depends on the frequency, severity, and duration of your symptoms, as well as how these symptoms negatively impact your occupational and social impairment. Now I'm going to turn things over to Coach Tim, and he's going to cover a little bit more here for you. Go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, appreciate it, Coach Jim. Yeah, so in the next portion, so kind of want to talk about how the VA rater, right, determines a veteran's final mental health rating, right? So the VA rater uses a 3-part test, right, from an online eval builder tool, and that is used to determine the final VA rating for mental health, right? So first, there's a subjective assessment of symptoms from the list of 31 VA mental health symptoms. And we'll kind of go over those symptoms here just a little bit later in the discussion. But your mental health symptoms can come from the medical evidence submitted, right? So maybe the diagnosis documentation from your doctor, statements, maybe a lay statement that the veteran writes as far as the symptoms and what they're experiencing, as well as the results of the C&P exam for mental health, right? So that's the first part. Then the second part is there's a subjective assessment of how those symptoms, right, impact a veteran's occupational and social impairment, right? And that's important, right? So, and that means, or the meaning of that is, for example, how does it impair your work? How does it impair the veteran's life and the veteran's social functioning, right? So this also comes from, again, like we said, your submitted evidence that is part of the claim and the results of the C&P exam. And then finally, using that online tools list, the veteran's approximate mental health rating at either 0, 10%, 30%, 50%, 70, or 100% is determined. However, the VA rater does have the ability to override and go one rating level above or a one rating level below the recommended disability percentage. So that's kind of a breakdown of how the VA rater determines final mental health rating. So and what I'd like to get into now is really the VA mental health rating criteria, and I'll start off with 0%, right? So so at 0%, remember we talked about, and you'll hear this a lot. So you'll hear, and I used to hear this a lot from Brian Reese. I still hear it from all the coaches out there. Is you got to get your butt to the doctor, right? You got to have a diagnosis, and that goes right off the bat. So for 0%, right? So a mental condition has been formally diagnosed, right? So there's a diagnosis of a mental health condition, and for 0%, but for symptoms are not severe enough either to interfere with occupational and social functioning or to require continuous medication, right? So for right off the bat, got to have a mental health diagnosis, right? To be able to file that claim to even start looking at any kind of a rating, right? So the rating criteria. And then when we look at 10%, right? So for 10%, again, we're talking about the symptoms and occupational and social impairment. So at 10%, occupational and social impairment is due to mild or transient symptoms, which decrease work efficiency and ability to perform occupational tasks only during periods of significant stress, or symptoms are controlled by continuous medication, right? So that's 10%. Now at 30%, of course, each one of these, increases in the frequency and duration for some of these. So I'll kind of point those out as I'm going through. But occupational and social impairment at 30%, with occasional decrease in work efficiency and intermittent periods of inability to perform occupational tasks, right? And these are tasks, that can be generally functional, satisfactory, that are routine behaviors, right? Due to symptoms as depressed mood, anxiety, suspiciousness, panic attacks. But at 30%, we're talking panic attacks weekly or less often. And I'll kind of break that down as we go up because it will change, again, talking frequency and severity. Chronic sleep impairment, memory or mild memory loss, such as forgetting names, directions, or recent events, right? And then I'll kind of break into 50%. So at 50%, now the occupational and social impairment is with reduced reliability and productivity, due to such symptoms as flattened effect, circumstantial or stereotype speech. Now we're talking panic attacks more than once a week. So you can see where frequency has changed in this case. Difficulty in understanding complex commands, impairment of short and long-term memory, impaired judgment, impaired abstract thinking, disturbances in motivation and mood, and then again, difficulty in establishing and maintaining effective work and social relationships. And that's basically a breakdown from 0 to 50. But again, for every one of these, right off the bat, the veteran must have a formally diagnosed mental health condition. Coach Jim, you want to take it over from here?
Yes, yes, Coach Tim, thank you very much. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the 70% to 100, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about the level of occupational and social impairment. And then we're going to go into some of the symptoms for the 70 and 100%. Okay. So, total in occupational social impairment with deficiencies in most areas, such as work, school, family relations, judgment, thinking, or mood, reduced reliability and productivity, occasional decrease in work efficiency, and intermittent periods of inability to perform occupational tasks. Okay. Mild or transient symptoms, which decrease work efficiency and ability to perform occupational tasks only during periods of significant stress. Okay. Um, Symptoms controlled by continuous medication. Symptoms are not severe enough to interfere with occupational and social functioning or require continuous medication. Okay. So some of the symptoms that fall into the 70 percent rating criteria. Okay. Suicidal ideations, obsessional rituals, which interfere with routine activities, speech intermittently illogical, obscure, or irrelevant, right? Near continuous panic or depression affecting the ability to function independently, um, appropriately and effectively, right? And impaired impulse control, uh, unprovoked irritability with periods of violence, spatial disorientation, okay? Neglect of personal appearance and hygiene, and difficulty in adapting to stressful circumstances, including, work settings, inability to establish and maintain effective relationships. Okay. So those are some of the symptoms that fall into the 70 percentile uh, range rating for mental health. When we go to the 100%, right? When we go to the 100% symptoms, right? Gross impairment in thought process or communication, persistent delusions or hallucinations, right? Grossly inappropriate behavior, persistent danger of hurting their self or others, and intermittent inability to perform daily activities, to maintain minimal personal hygiene, disorientation to time or place. Uh, Veteran forgets their own occupation name or close relatives' names. Okay. So, um, basically, the best thing, and then Coach Tim touched on this as well, is get diagnosed, right? Have a current diagnosis. Um, and when you come to VA Claims Insider, right, we have a preferred provider network, right, where we can get you connected for a mental health evaluation, so you can see, where you fall at. Uh, the 31 VA mental health symptoms, right, for rating purposes, right? We're going to go over a list of the 31 mental health symptoms, and we may not get to all of them, right? I'm going to cover a few, then Coach Jim is going to come in. Um, but the 31 mental health symptoms recognized by the VA, along with a detailed explanation of each symptom from the Disability Questionnaire for mental disorders, okay? Um, Understanding what the 31 symptoms are and how they relate to you is going to be a key to educating yourself, right? So you can speak on your symptoms, right? Your symptoms. Every veteran in here, hey, your symptoms are going to be different from the other one, right? You have to tailor it to the frequency, severity, and duration of your symptoms. Okay. So I'm going to kick it off with a couple, Coach Tim. So, depressed mood, right? A persistent feeling of sadness or lack of interest in external stimuli, which might manifest as a significant decrease in the person's overall mood. Okay. Anxiety, right? Frequent or constant feelings of worry, nervousness, or unease about something with an uncertain outcome or about general aspects of daily life. Okay. Um, Here's one that I struggle with: suspiciousness, right? A irrational or excessive distrust of others, which can lead to significant social dysfunction and isolation. And I'll let Coach Tim go ahead here and pick up on panic attacks.
Yeah. So, and this is one again. I have is panic attacks, right? So, and there's a difference, right? So there's two different, their panic attacks are, weekly or less often, right? So sudden onset of intense fear or discomfort that peaks within minutes, including symptoms such as palpitations, right? Heart palpitations, sweating, shaking, shortness of breath, feelings of impending doom occurring infrequently, right? And then there's those panic attacks that are more than once a week, right? So and those are similar to the above that I just mentioned, but again, we're just talking about frequency now, moving from maybe someone has panic attacks once every month or maybe every couple months versus having panic attack weekly or even daily, right? And that's what's important about knowing these. Especially when me going into the program, the elite program as elite member is knowing those differences, right? So because once I understood that I had panic attacks, right, but being able to explain to the C&P examiner how often I was having panic attacks, well, that was instrumental with my VA rating because I wouldn't have known the difference other than I have panic attacks, right? So, but then there's also near continuous panic, right, which is what I'm talking about. That's maybe hourly or on a daily basis, right? The same as panic attacks, and then chronic sleep impairment, right? So a lot of folks that suffer from mental health have ongoing difficulties in falling or staying asleep. I know I have this as well. This kind of rolls into one we'll cover in a minute, which is obsessive compulsive behavior, right? So I have a tendency to want to check my door locks. I have a tendency to want to check my cameras, maybe walk my perimeter. Well, that happens at night. Difficulty falling asleep, staying awake. I want to get up and check. So some of these are, will be tied together, right? So, but the chronic sleep impairment, and then affects your daily functioning, right? And overall health and performance at work. Coach Jim?
Yeah, so thank you for touching on that and giving that the perspective, right? So the 31 symptoms, it comes down to understanding them. And with the elite membership, right, when you have a coach, you're going to get the education and the knowledge that you need to be successful. And just like Coach Tim said, hey, once he knew the definitions, right, he could tailor those to, hey, what he was going through, right, and speaking on his symptoms and his conditions from his perspective, what he goes through on a daily basis. Um, Also, there is, mild memory loss, which includes forgetting names, directions, or recent events, which can affect daily functioning, but might not necessarily impede professional responsibilities or personal relationships, right? Um, there's also impairment of short and long-term memory, right? This is more severe than mild memory loss, and it includes difficulty retaining new information or recalling previously known information. Okay. Um, there's also the memory loss of for names of close relatives, your own occupation, or own name, a severe level of memory loss impacting the individual's ability to recall significant, well established information about their life. Also, when you're doing an evaluation and you're getting evaluated, there's the flatten effect, right? Is there a lack of emotional expressiveness where the person shows minimal emotion reactions to various circumstances? Okay. So, one thing, Coach Tim, is when veterans are getting diagnosed, the providers are looking for these. They're trying to observe you. And if you're doing a telehealth appointment, right, they're trying to observe you via the screen. So it's important that, hey, if you're having a telehealth appointment, that, hey, your lighting is good, your comms are good, because the provider is going to be trying to observe you for some of these symptoms. Circumstantial or stereotype speech, right? The speech that is indirect or delayed in reaching the point, or often because of unnecessary detail or any inappropriate repetition of phrases. Okay. Um, there's also difficulty in understanding complex commands, right? Challenges in comprehending and processing multifaceted or layered instructions. Um, there's impaired judgment, which has a reduced ability to make thoughtful decisions, which might include an inability to understand the consequences of one's actions. Okay. Um, there's also impaired abstract thinking, right? Difficulty in understanding abstract concepts, using those concepts to problem solve. And then there's also gross impairment in the thought process or communication, right? Significant disruptions in the ability to think clearly or communicate effectively. Okay. Disturbances of motivation and mood, where a veteran may have variability or changes in mood and motivation that interfere with the daily life. Okay. Um, Here's a really good one that, you know, it's very good to touch on. A lot of times it's difficulty in establishing and maintaining effective work and social relationships. Okay. Um, really digging in, problems with forming and sustaining relationships in both personal and professional contexts. As a veteran coach, I talk to, a lot of veterans, and some of them really have struggles and difficulty in establishing and maintaining, work relationships, to the point where, hey, they may have had 5 or 6 different jobs in the last 12 months. So, speaking on those symptoms and those circumstances that relate to you, um, and getting those across and communicated, are all going to be part of, effectively communicating the symptoms that you experience. Difficulty adapting to stressful circumstances, right? Challenges with adjusting to stressful situations. uh, they're typically manageable by average people, right? So that's another one of the symptoms. And I'll go ahead and let Coach Tim touch on a couple more, and then we're going to get to question and answer, because we want to make sure that we leave enough time for that.
No, and I just want to kind of recap because, and I think you brought up a good point, right? And I know this was very um, helpful for me, and that is understanding, right, the different symptoms is one thing, right? I can identify that, me, Coach Tim, has impaired judgment, right? But then by knowing what that impaired judgment and kind of knowing that definition of what impaired judgment was, when I was able to go talk to, the psychologist, right, or the C&P examiner later on, I wasn't just telling them that I had impaired judgment, right? I was able to actually break out of my shell, because I was in a shell, right? I put all this stuff in my back pocket and just kind of tucked it away, but I was able to become what we call, uncomfortably vulnerable and tell my story. And that's where I think this really opened the door for me, was being able to tell the story, right? So when we talk about like impaired judgment, so what was impaired judgment to Coach Tim? So, well, Coach Tim came back with some anger issues when he came back from Afghanistan, right? And so I had this feeling that I wanted to chase somebody down the road, and because they cut me off or whatever that was, right? So, and then that's a poor judgment I was making, right? And not understanding the consequences of my actions, right? The one's action me. And so understanding where impaired judgment came in for me, and then being able to paint a picture for the VA, is where this education and understanding of these symptoms for me became so important, because that set me up at that C&P exam to be able to tell my whole story, to tell them about me and how my experiences in the military, especially in combat, affected my work, affected my life, affected my relationships. And that goes right into what you said, which was the difficulty establishing and maintaining effective work and social relationships. Folks struggle with going to work, especially if you're having impaired judgment, maybe making comments to coworkers, or cutting folks off. So or maintaining a break that you get back from somewhere, and you can't establish a relationship with your spouse because you don't want to tell your story, right? You're afraid to tell your story of what happened to you. So understanding these symptoms, and I know there's a lot of them, and I know Coach Jim doing a great job of breaking these all down and give a definition, but this is information that you can pull back up, right? So this information is going to be out there for everybody. I know we're going through this list, but it is available. I know it's in the chat. So, but getting those is really there to paint a picture, right? So for you to be able to tell your story and really identify your symptoms, right? That's the key, is identifying which ones affect you, especially when you're getting into the more significance. Like if you're talking about persistent delusions and hallucinations, right? So that's falling more into the 100% rating criteria, right? Which is the ongoing false beliefs of perception in the absence of external stimuli, right? Which may affect your behavior, veterans' behavior, or interactions with society, right? So, and then, like I said, some of the things like, and I think someone put it in the chat, right? Neglect of personal appearance and hygiene, right? If that's something you identify as a veteran, then being able to understand what that is, right? The significant lack of the concern about your personal grooming and cleanliness, which is noticeable by others, all because maybe you're in such a depressed state, and can't, or have an anxiety, and you can't leave your residence, that it now starts affecting your ability to take care of yourself, right? And your grooming standards and your ability to take. So all these kind of sometimes roll and tie into each one. One, compounds another, but being able to explain that to someone, whether it be your initial diagnosis to your doctor, or to at a C&P exam, I just can't stress enough how much it is. And that's why we like to go over these, just to be able to reiterate what these are. But I think, Coach Jim, I think I've covered that pretty well. So I'll turn it back over to you.
You did, Coach Tim, and thank you for elaborating on that as well. Memorizing all of these and everything else is just one tool, but you know, telling them which ones you have and how they affect you, right? And going through that and communicating that when you have your evaluation, and getting across your symptoms, your frequency, your duration, what happens with you at work, right? Telling your story, communicating that, and getting that across is going to be key. But right here, and with the education, hey, you're now educated on the different symptoms, right? Because hey, when you come here, there's some things that, hey, you may not know you have until you go over these 31 symptoms. And, as a veteran coach, I educate my veterans and take them to the 31 symptoms and have them go through it, right? Not only with themselves, because, hey, me and Coach, Tim go through these. We may only check off a couple, but hey, if I sit down with my wife and if he sits down with his, right, getting someone else that knows you, hey, to go through these and give you the feedback so you can know, hey, oh yeah, I do that. I didn't notice that. All of that is in the it's going to help you better understand your symptoms and be able to communicate effectively when you're having your evaluation, to talk on them and to speak on the ones that affect you, and to give and to give real life examples of what you go through, right? So what we're going to do is, we have a lot of questions. Everyone that tuned in, we're going to turn things over because I want to be able to get to as many questions, as we can today, so we can, get to everyone's, questions. Those questions that don't get answered on the live, one of our so your question will get answered. If it's not on the live, we'll have a team member reach out to you. But also, hey, reaching out and getting that discovery call and talking to one of our team members and to see if we're a good fit. Okay.
Or even
Just
reaching out to you. I think we put a link in there, reaching out if you'd like to, talk, one-on-one session with Coach Jim. There's a link in there if you want to reach out to Coach Tim. You're more than welcome to do that as well. There's links in there for that as well, and you can feel free to get talking to us.
absolutely. We'd love to hear from you. So, once again, hey, here in the elite program, right? You're going to be able to create a solid strategy. You're going to get the education that you need to go up against the VA and the medical evidence, right? Getting you connected with the preferred provider network for certain situations or secondary conditions. Also, you get the one-on-one coaching model, you get the strategy session, you get the claim education, you get the C&P education. You also get access to the live classes via Zoom 3 times a day, coffee with the coaches, right? And, it's just tons of resources and education that you get when you partner with VA Claims Insider. Also, I want everyone in here to check out Brian's new book, okay? VA Claim Secrets. It's now available. Order yours today on Amazon, and there's lots and lots of great information in there with VA Claim Secrets. All right, let's go ahead and turn to some of these questions, Coach Tim. So
Do it. All right, so right at the bat, I got one from Jorge Suarez, and it says, "Good morning. Sleep apnea, submitted to sleep apnea as secondary for PTSD, thyroid, anxiety, and I have a record that when I was at least one time at the clinic in regards to sleep issues, right? And it's step 5 for 4 months, right? And then I think you followed up with that. Is it normal going back and forth 3 to 5? Is well, number one, it's amazing that you got your claim there submitted, and pulling, rooting for you to get that win, right? So, but yes, it is absolutely normal to actually bounce back and forth between 3 and 5, and there could be all kinds of reasons why that's happening. Maybe someone inside the back the system had to update something in your record, so therefore it sent it back to 3 because they need to pull some more evidence. Or there's a multitude of reasons why it bounces back from 3 to 5. That is very normal and very common. I know several of my claims did that same thing, and then all of a sudden I went to step 5, and I'm like, I'm in step 5 for 4 months, and then one of my claims moved from 5 to 8 in a week. So it's just there's just no no rhyme and rhythm sometimes with that, but that is absolutely normal, Jorge. So just know they will process that claim, and the time frames are just so sometimes they speed up and sometimes they slow down. So it just is what it is, unfortunately.
yeah, very very good question there in the chat. I'm going to go to um, Sarah Collins. Okay. Will there be a transcript? You're going too fast for note taking, and we covered a lot of information, right? There is a link, here, and also you can reach out and get a discovery call, right? Or even sign up for a call from myself or Coach Tim. But yeah, there's lots of information on our VA Claims Insider website that will go through that. As an elite member, you get access to the 31 symptoms of mental health, and they're all broken down. So I know we covered a lot of information, but I just wanted to answer that question for you real quick. Okay.
And just to add to that, right? So this video or this presentation will present itself again, right after this. It'll be uploaded, so you can actually go back and slow it down if you need to replay it and recap and hear what we were covering. So if you need that, that is going to be available as well. So, all right, what else we got out here? Let's see. So there's a question from John Lee, and it says, can a mental health claim be approved with just a private DBQ a nexus letter and without a C&P exam. So that's kind of a tricky question, right? So first I'll address what's called PTSD, right? So a PTSD, right? The VA is going to do. There's going to be a DBQ done by the VA, right? That's a requirement from them, and the C&P exam, right? So firstly, if it's a first time claim, PTSD claim, so that is going to happen. And then for the VA C&P exam, you can have your private DBQ. Of course, you can have a nexus letter, but there's going to be an exam, right? Where that exam is going to be a compensation and pension exam or an ACE exam, right? So there's a good chance that, let's say you submit a private DBQ and a nexus letter for a mental health claim, depending on what the claim is, right? And there's a chance that, it's going to be a compensation and pension exam or an ACE exam, which is acceptable clinical evidence exam. But there's going to be an exam. That's just how it's going to go down, right? So they're going to have to get that information. Unless you got more to add on that, Coach Joe.
Yeah. So when you come to VA Claims Insider, right, there is a situation where, hey, a veteran will get their independent medical evidence, right, a private evaluation done, right, and they submit a fully developed claim, right? They submit a fully developed claim, and it has the evaluation, it has a DBQ and a nexus. In some cases, it is rare. When you developed a DRE, it's considered a decision ready, a DRC, decision ready claim. When you have a medical nexus and a DBQ, and the evaluation's already been done, right? The VA can and sometimes will make a decision without an examination, but it is very rare. But sometimes, hey, it's double work, because some veterans will say, hey, I just had an independent mental health evaluation done by a licensed professional, right? And hey, the VA is requiring me to do another one, right? But sometimes if you submit a fully developed claim and you have that information, the VA can render a decision without a examination. Okay. It is very rare. When I am coaching my veterans, I always have them prepare, right? Prepare, prepare. If you don't, hey, that's great. And, when it comes back, it does save time and money on the VA side as well, so they can get to more claims. So having a fully developed claim with your medical evidence, all evidence submitted at the time of the claim as well, is definitely going to benefit the veteran on getting you through the system in the most timely manner. But very good question, John.
Appreciate it.
Okay, here's a good question in the chat. Let's see. From Mark Nichols. Okay. All right. Can we bring that one up here? I am 100% PNT, of which 70% is for mental health. My question is, with owning a gun and being rated, every time I have a VA appointment, they ask me if I own a gun. If I answer yes, will I lose my guns? And here's the thing. When you come here, there's a lot of misinformation on mental health. Okay. Having a 100% PNT rating and 70% for mental health, it is not going to cause you to lose your guns unless you give them a reason to come take them. And Coach, Coach Tim will elaborate a little bit more on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm right here in the great state of Texas, right? So I am I have guns. So I'm 70% rated for mental health, right? So like you said, unless I'm actually found to be mentally incompetent, right? I'm not worried about that. I've never had an issue with that. So, but in every situation is different. So we can't attest to everything that's going on, but just like you said, that mental health rating alone is not the anything for the folks who come and talking about guns. So, and again, every state's a little bit different, right? I can only speak on Texas primarily, but that's all I can say on it. That matters. So please talk about if the person becomes mentally incompetent, and then a judge decides that they're having an issue. So.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you very much, Coach Tim, for touching in on that. There's another question here, and it's from Ken Lorbis, and it's in the chat. We're going to go ahead and bring it up. And it goes, I'm rated 0% for migraine. What is needed for me to do for increase? Hi, Ken. How are you doing today? A great question. That's a reason for you to definitely to reach out and reach out to us here, right? You can connect with myself or Coach Tim. Get a discovery call, right? Because there's a lot of things that go into that. Just as a veteran coach, I work with hundreds of veterans. A lot of veterans are underrated. Coach Tim, they're underrated, and it could just be because, hey, one thing as veterans, we complain very little, right? I remember when I used to go to medical. When I was a veteran, I shared very, very little details because when I was on active duty, hey, I didn't want to get put out or sent home, right? But yeah, definitely reach out for a discovery call, right? Would love to talk to you. When a veteran is rated at 0%, it just means the VA didn't have enough information to give you a compensatable rating. Okay. You're service connected, but at 0%. So there could be several things that are missing. Maybe the frequency, severity, duration of your symptoms. Hey, does your condition cause you to miss work? Right? Migraines is a horrible condition. It's important. Hey, when you're, uh, at a C&P examination to really take notes and to get everything out on how that service connected disability affects you occupationally and socially, right? I have some veterans that I work with that are service connected for migraines. Coach Tim, they haven't had a vacation in 3 to 4 years because they use all of their vacation time up because they run out of sick leave. Okay. And some of them are on, some of them are on a PIP, performance improvement plan, right? Or have to sign up for FMLA. All of that stuff would be very good evidence, right? For a veteran to bring up and to present, with those situations. But very good question, Ken. We hope to hear from you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will bring up this. This really affects everybody in all states, really. And this is from Harley Man. He asked a question about is there online PTSD classes or group meetings in Texas specifically, but really, this covers all 50 states. And that would be, contact your local VA office, right? So your local VA office, almost every one of them has a mental health department, right? And inside that mental health department, I can tell you from experience, because I found the PTSD classes in Texas, but they specifically, you have to go and talk to the VA, right, and get an appointment to talk to a mental health provider, and then working with that VA mental health provider, they can give you the resources out there in any one of your states that you're located in, not just Texas, but the resources if you're looking for some type of a PTSD class or a mental health provider to start talking about diagnoses for yourself. But that's where you can start. I would say go to your VA, work with your VA, get yourself a referral to see mental health. Like I said, that's the getting your butt to the doctor, right? Get your mental health diagnosis, and while you're in there, talk to them about those online PTSD classes. They do have them all throughout the states. Anyway, hope that helps, Harley.
Okay, I got a question here in the chat from Patrick Hathaway. All right, can you explain the process of the exam? How do these examiners get the information they observe, but do they go through a type of OF list and ask Do you do this, etc.? So, very good question there, Patrick. The examiner is going to lead the evaluation, right? When they do it, okay. They're going to focus in on pre-military, right? Um, hey, what was going on in childhood, where school life, and everything else during military, and then post-military, right? I tell most veterans, hey, focus in on the during military and after military, right? If you went to MEPS and passed a MEPS physical, you were mentally and physically fit to serve, right? If you didn't have a diagnosed mental health condition when you joined, focus in on, hey, the in-service events that happened or occurred and how they've affected you. And hey, what do the relationships look like now compared to before? Hey, before you joined service, did you have 20 friends? Were you doing stuff with family all the time? Did you get along with everyone great? And now, hey, you may only have one or two close friends, and you don't have good relationships with family members or coworkers. So I hope I was able to give you a little insight on that one, but very good question there, Patrick.
Yeah, very good.
Oh, there's another one in here from Brian, Venezuela. Okay. Hi, Brian. How are you doing? Very good question here. He's in the process of filing his initial claims, right? Do I submit my service treatment records, for everyone who doesn't know what STRs are, um, under VA records or private records on the online application? So it's very important that you probably reach out to us and get a discovery call, Brian. Um, when you are submitting records to the VA, right, and you want them to review them in the most expedited way possible, there is a section for supporting lay statements. Okay. Um, if you want to get a little bit more information, please reach out for a discovery call. And this is a very good point. The way that you submit information uh, on your online claims application on the VA Form 21526EZ, right, can determine how long it takes to get that claim adjudicated, right? You want to have stuff in the right section, and you don't want them to have to reach out and ask for consent on some of your private records. So it's definitely another reason the partner with VA Claims Insider, right, and to join the elite program. But yes, that is great that you do have your service treatment records, um, and hold on to them. Right, go ahead and put them up on the cloud so you'll have access to them, so they can't be destroyed. Right, because that's really going to help in the process of you putting in that claim. But very good question, Brian. Thank you.
Another good question coming in from, and I think we're getting close to shutting things down. But there's this question here, and it's from Joey Hearn. Submitted my claims yesterday. When should I expect a C&P exam? Right. So, don't have a good answer for you. Right. It's the speed of the VA. Right. So, you could potentially get a C&P exam, maybe within notification within 10 to 15 days. It could take 35 days. Right. So I think, talking with, following up and checking in with veterans all throughout the week, it's really, I'm seeing it all over the place. Right. And I can't really even tell you why that happens, why some folks get a C&P exam in 10 days, or at least a notification within 10 days and do their C&P exam maybe 10 more days after their initial filing. But some folks are sitting out there waiting 35 to 40 days. So there's not a good answer for when that C&P exam will come out. But I will tell you what I commonly tell my veterans, and what I did myself, of course, as I'm filing claims, is log into va.gov, right? Log into your va.gov and go to that page where you said my VA. You can look at manage my in my claims and appeals, and actually go to that claim that was filed and you can look inside there and see movement, right? You can see actually details, some detailed notes. You can't see actual files, but you can see some detailed notes on the VA making movement on potentially making a C&P exam request, closing that exam request down, so you can know that potentially you're getting close to the VA going to notify you either through email, text, or a phone call of the pending, C&P exam with one of those, contracted companies like LHI or DES or QTC. So that's one way you can kind of go in there and track and see where the movement is. And you can also call the VA 800 number. There's 800-827-1000. You can talk to a representative there and maybe ask them, where you are in that, claims process. Is a C&P exam coming up? Because I know everybody's worried that they're going to miss a call and not get the C&P exam. And so, like I always tell folks, be checking every phone call that comes in where you think it's a telemarketer or not. Answer that phone call, because it could be that contracted company reaching out for a C&P exam. So I hope that answers. I know it doesn't give you a definitive time frame, but that's the honest truth, really. So.
Yeah, very, very good question there. And you had a good point too, Coach Tim. Answer any call that you may get, right? Because sometimes it won't show up. Also, sometimes, but not all the time, they may email you before they call. So it's very important when you are submitting a claim to make sure all your contact information is up to date, right? Email, phone number, because that's the method they're going to reach out. If they send you an email and you haven't got a call yet, go ahead and reach out in that email, give them a call and let them know. Another thing too, that's another pro tip is when you're going through this process and they call you to schedule, be very flexible, right? As a veteran, you should want to get the next thing going, or as soon as possible. Make sure your availability is good so you can get in there, because the sooner you get in, right, and get the evaluation done, the sooner they can send their information up to the VA, and the sooner your claim could start moving through the system, right? If I was to tell them, hey, Coach Tim, I'm only available on Friday, it may take them a longer period of time to get me in, right? Because I'm only available on Fridays versus if I was flexible, so I can get in. There's a lot of good questions here in the in the chat. I want to thank everybody for posting in there, and just know, hey, if me or Coach Tim didn't get to your question, hey, we will have a team member reach out and get your question, answered for you. If you want to learn, more, schedule a discovery call and talk to one of our team members, by going to vaclaims.help. Okay. We'd love to partner with you, right, on your VA claim journey, right? We covered quite a bit today. This will be posted in here as well, so you can go back through and review it. But definitely want to thank everyone for tuning in today.
No, absolutely appreciate everybody tuning in, all the great questions out there, getting all this great information out on the mental health ratings. Like I said, this is important information, and I really enjoy whenever I get to, present that out to our fellow veterans out there to wade through that VA claims process, right? Because it can seem difficult at times. So, and I mean, we appreciate Coach Jim you hosting with me today, and I thank everybody. Hope y'all come back for the next Wednesday Facebook Live, and we hope to see you there.
Absolutely. Hope to hear from some of you as well. So our links are here. If you want to start your journey, please sign up. But thank you for tuning in today. Very good questions. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for y'all service. Y'all have a great, wonderful Wednesday afternoon, and stay warm if you're cold out there.